President Trump was on the world stage front and center in the last 24 hours discussing crypto, Bitcoin, AI, among plenty of other economic policies. But the price hasn't gone anywhere. Does that mean that we're starting to see good news turn into bad? Or is this just the final shakeout before we see higher prices? Plenty of charts to get through today, along with your macro cycle update here on the channel with me, Jason Pizzino. Like, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the daily content. We're updating the markets on a daily basis here, and I don't want you to miss out on any of that. Okay, guys, links in the video description for our 4th birthday sale coming up next week. I'll talk about that more in the video, but let's kick it off with the big stuff that has happened in the last 24 hours. First things first, this is the committee schedule for the week to lead the Senate's first digital asset subcommittee alongside a handful of other picks to lead the various other subcommittees. Okay, what does this all mean? All right, let's look to Bloomberg here. Trump order on crypto to develop national digital asset stockpile, thanks to Fox. Everyone's reporting on this, even Michael Saylor. SAB 121 has been rescinded. So Saylor is explaining this as it is allowing banks to custody Bitcoin. Bitcoin could resume rally. Well, anyone could say that, right? But what has actually happened, Trump signs executive order, calls US a crypto and AI hub. I watched this morning. So this was Trump addressing the World Economic Forum. I listened to the whole thing. Essentially, he's gone through and said what they're going to be doing over his presidency, right? But the main thing people keep coming back to are a couple of points here. So this is the crypto EO. He's signing it right here. President Donald Trump signs order declassifying, well, MLK and JFK files. That one's going to be interesting. But we're looking at crypto and AI. So he's basically said that it is going to be the hub in the US, but we haven't seen anything happen on the price. And as I said in the intro, well, what is this about? Are we starting to see good news basically stall here? And I don't necessarily think that that is a bad thing at this point. We have seen extreme volatility. We saw $10,000 bars on Monday. That was the inauguration day. Huge pump up to a new all-time high by $1,000, and then a massive dump. The day after, big moves again. That whole bar on the Tuesday was again roughly $7,200. And then in the last 24 hours, we've had this bar here, so $5,700. But on the back of the announcements, we saw it pump up and then back down. And this has essentially led to a lot more liquidations. And in the last 24 hours, nearly $400 million, both long and short. You can see here on the chart, a little bit bigger than the last 2 days, not as big as the billion-dollar days of liquidations, but it still seems like there is far too much excitement for the upside, but not enough fear for the downside either. And at the moment, on the short term, we're still seeing higher lows continuing to form here. Doesn't mean it's going to hold forever because, again, this is a short-term chart, but at least you're beginning to see higher lows. And then as the market consolidates, it is attempting to do it at higher prices. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And I'm here on a 4-hour chart. We take it back down to the daily, slightly longer term here. This was the key level that we've been watching now on the channel for quite some time. Basically, I want to see consolidation above that 102, 103 level. And over the last 7 days, going back to Friday 17th, it's now Friday 24th, out of the last 7 days, only 2 of those closed underneath that 103 level. So in amongst all of this volatility, there's a heap going on. I think people are, well, investors, traders are trying to figure out what comes next. And bit by bit on that shorter term at least, and of course this can flush out, there is some evidence that at least in that short term, you're starting to see slightly more bullish prices. Now, if there is a flush out, another major flush out, this was the billion-dollar day back here. This was the 1.2, I think it was, or $1.7 billion day of liquidations for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. If we are to see something else like that, big move down, I still see longer term, and that is over the course of, say, 6 to 12 months over 2025, that we're going to see higher prices and a bit more of a sustained rally to the upside, maybe even a bit of a boom. But in the short term, over this quarter, as we've been talking about for January and Q1, it still seems like the market is trying to decipher what all these executive orders mean and where does it go from here. It's one thing to say and to sign something, but the next thing is, well, obviously to do. And what Trump has demanded, at least in a couple of these interviews that we got here and his talks here, he is demanding that there is immediate rate cuts. Now, we know there is a rate cut meeting coming up in less than 6 days' time. The market has basically just said no. There is no cut coming up, even though Trump demands immediate rate cuts. So during a virtual address of the World Economic Forum, that is what this thing is right here, he wants an immediate rate cut. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen until at least June. Of course, this can always be wrong, but if you've got the market increasing, prices at least stabilizing where they are, why would we need a cut here? And of course, there's obviously the other side, people saying, well, everything's too expensive, yada, yada, yada. That's what Trump's trying to do here. Let's let the market do the talking. And at the moment, the talking is prices will continue to go up, or at least assets, so our investments. It's not necessary for a cut at this rate or at this stage. There's a lot of good news coming out. And essentially what I'm finding here, or at least from what I can tell, is although the market is going up, or at least stabilizing, and we're seeing the market going up for the stock markets here, hitting a new, fresh, all-time high for the S&P minis, S&P 500 mini futures, and then the SPX, another new all-time high. Even Wednesday, I can't believe I missed that by a tick or two. Didn't report on the new all-time high. There's 6,000, just short of 6,100 back on the 6th of December. And just today, it's closed out at 6,118. So new all-time highs here. The NASDAQ getting close again to a new all-time high. The NASDAQ futures market, similar sort of thing here, getting close to a new all-time high. But what we were watching was the slight decrease in volume as this market went up. As I've been talking about, quarter one, January into February, around this period, even though we're seeing slightly higher prices, there is a lack of interest here in the volume. Now, of course, that can pick up, but as we've talked about many times before, looking at the analysis over, a lot of history here for the S&P 500, often when it does this sort of thing where it runs up on lower volume, it typically comes back and fills in some of that, basically where the price had run up on lowering volume, just to fill back in to see whether those buyers are going to sustain the price should it come back down. Now, this has been a very, very strong move, and I dare say it's going to come up in some of the data points in future weeks. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days up here in a row, higher highs, higher lows, leading to a fresh all-time high as well. Now, if you're aware of your Gann rules, looking at the 7 to 10 day rule, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And to confirm that, we can turn our settings on for the Gann Swing Pro, drop down, look at the bar count here, 7 to the upside. So the rule is 7 to 10 days in the same direction from, at least in this case, from a very significant top. We do have a new all-time high. There generally is a change in trend, at the very least a pause. You can see here, 7 days, this ran up into a new all-time high at the time, October. There is the 7 at the top of that. The market essentially paused and then corrected from that point all the way down into October. What else have we seen? We've seen 10 days run up from the August low, paused, and then corrected. And that's just 2 that I can quickly see off the chart here. And we could take this all the way back, continue to do more and more of that back testing. But I'll leave that up to you to do, right? So that's where we sit right now, in this range of that 7 to 10 days, some sort of pause or correction coming up over, I would say, the next 1 to 3 or so weeks, just based on what we've seen previously. Something very interesting on the short term, and we looked at this yesterday, this was the AA. On the weekly, the week ending here, the 15th, they were the most bearish. So investors, this is just a survey that goes out to individual investors who typically get it wrong most of the time. And you can see it here on, on this survey. This is just the facts, not having a go. It's just the facts here. They were the most bearish on this week ending here on the 15th of January. That was back at this low, most bearish. And here they are, most bullish in this last recent period here. So back up to 29.4 bearish, but the majority here, 43.4, particularly bullish. So it doesn't mean that we can't go any higher, but it's funny to see that, well, you had a low here, might as well be getting into the markets at some sort of low, even just a drip, just a tiny bit. But no, they decided to get a little bit bullish towards the peaks here, and especially after quite significant runs. This one here was 7 days in a row. So we've covered off a lot of things here with what's going on with Trump and the executive orders, crypto and AI hub, the liquidations that have been happening, his talks, more of the executive orders. Now, BlackRock's CEO wants SEC to rapidly approve tokenization of bonds and stocks. What it means for crypto? Well, essentially, this could lead to cryptocurrencies or tokenization of the bonds and stocks so that you can trade them 24/7. Like, why can't you trade these things 24/7 in 2025? Seems pretty ridiculous. And so if Trump's changing a few things up there, like we've seen back here with the committee schedules, and there's going to be changes in the SEC, of course, I dare say this is going to be something that also happens in the near future. Of course, that's just my opinion, and take it with a grain of salt. But if this does come about, well, you're starting to hear about it now, but we haven't seen anything actually done yet. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink says he's a huge believer in crypto. Okay, he's changed his tune, and urges the SEC to rapidly approve asset tokenization. All right. Obviously, this would be a net positive for the crypto space because more people would hear about it. But for those individual junk shitcoins, probably not. They might pop off for a little bit, but probably not in the long term. We've also seen Canada hit a new fresh high in the short term, getting close back to that previous old all-time high. Australia starting out on a nice strong foot here for Friday. After a red day yesterday, the top 50 in Europe in the last 24 hours closed at a new fresh 24 and a bit year high, getting close to that next target. And then, of course, the all-time high. And finally, let's take a look at the US dollar. It's on track here at the moment to repeat a very similar move to the downside that it saw throughout November into that low in December. What that means is we could be looking to some sort of overbalance in time and price over the coming months, which could also be a positive impact for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and of course other assets if we're to begin seeing a weakening here of the US dollar. And we should take a quick look at gold as well, as it's also had a very strong move to the upside. Yesterday closing at 2,768, and on Wednesday was 2,756. So this is now one of the highest closes in history. I dare say about the third highest close in history. So gold's also having a pretty good time, while the US dollar, as we just looked at, is having the last few days to the downside. So I think over this longer term, even if we are to see a short-term correction, I think for BTC, it still seems like things are building for a bigger 2025, even if there is some uncertainty in this first quarter. So that leads us over to the uncertainty of the markets. For the S&P 500, moved up to neutral from yesterday hitting fear. But for the crypto markets, we are again in greed after yesterday, in greed last week, greed last month, in greed. And for you crypto simps out there, the coin market cap fear and greed index for crypto, because everyone likes to think that this is only Bitcoin. It's predominantly Bitcoin, of course, but for the crypto lovers, you're in greed as well. It might not feel like that in the portfolios after all of these altcoins have been down, but that's the reading. There it is. It's greed. Yesterday was also greed there at 60. And for the last week or month, it's been basically sitting around neutral. But there's also some good news to all of this. And the good news is the exchange volume, 7-day moving average, has also continued to increase. This was something that we were concerned about, 3 weeks ago, early in January, when the exchange volume dropped to about $50 billion. Over the last 3 weeks, we've now jumped back up to $110 billion, still aiming to get above the previous top there at $130 billion. And the all-time high going back to the 2021 top is at $164 billion. The idea here is that we want to see more retail coming into the space, more of them chucking their money into these markets to, I don't know, make their 10 or 20x rather than just keeping things simple and just riding a nice easy trend. Basically, you want to see more participants at this stage in the market. Otherwise, things seem to die off. Things are looking good, even if there is some sort of short term. Okay, so over to the Google Trends and crypto and Bitcoin search terms past 5 years. Let's start big and then get smaller. You can see this nice move to the upside after putting in a higher low at this point. For crypto, it started to break past the previous top there set in December. However, for Bitcoin, it's a long way off that particular search volume from the previous, one of those all-time highs back in November. in the shorter terms, let's drop this down to 90 days. Let's skip straight down to 90. And you're also seeing that higher low form. The beauty here is that with the higher lows, we are seeing more interest come back into the market. So people are searching for Bitcoin and cryptos, and to marry that up with the exchange volume, they're actually putting their money into the market now. As crazy as it sounds, I know majority of people lose money in this game. I mean, I can't stop the millions of people who want to throw their money into the markets to hopefully make something. And we can see that coming back from the search terms. People are searching crypto, Bitcoin, and then I suppose they're going over where can they buy crypto on Bitcoin, you know, Coinbase or Australia SwiftX and CoinSpot. From that point, then they're putting money into the markets, and you can see it here with the exchange volume also increasing. Speaking of exchange volume, we've teamed up with our channel sponsor Bluffin to offer up to $100,000. Now, all the rules and terms and conditions can be found on the link in the video description for Bluffin. The most claimed prize is around $200. So yes, there is up to $100,000, but you got to work for it. They're not going to just give you 100K. The $200 is probably one of the most easiest ones to claim and probably the best value there. And if you want to find out more, the link is in the video description. You can trade all of your favorite altcoins over there, like your Trumps and SUI and XRP, whatever it is. I also find it a good way to spread the risk by having multiple exchanges. But at the end of the day, you do you. Links are down there. Don't get fooled or scammed using other links out in the space. All of the official links will be in the video description. Now, this was the big one that we've been following now for coming up 2.5-ish months. It's the USDT dominance. And for this entire time, it's been trading between 3.7, 3.8%. So the dominance of USDT out in the market, and roughly around 4.4, 4.6%. Now, one thing I hadn't mentioned over the last several weeks is this emphasizing the failure at 50%. So look at this one here. I'll put that back. Zooming in on that. The week of the all-time high in December, so it was on the 17th, you can see the dominance ran down into a low, came up, got rejected at 50%, fell away, put in a higher low, tested again, rejected quite quickly, and now we've broken down from that low. So although these things take a long time, at least in the minds of crypto simps, to play out, it's actually a reasonably good sign that we could see a breakdown of this 3.7%, which leads to, you guessed it, an F-off massive bull mania. For now, however, you can see a lot of the altcoins are still down. Some of them will obviously pump, but Bitcoin's probably primed in the best position if this breaks down. What does that look like here? Well, so far it's still holding above that 103 as we looked at in the intro. Ideally, you don't want to see Bitcoin go under 99K, and essentially the same analysis from the previous days remains here. The overhead resistance here still remains. It's a 2017 top connected to the 2021 top, and we've also had one hit so far, but it was only a relatively shallow pullback in the grand scheme of things, right? So we've now tested it again, another pullback. So any sort of consolidation above 100, 103 is going to set us up for that next move. And I suspect these sort of things are going to take time because we're looking to break down very, very key, long-lasting resistance levels. This one here, huge, huge resistance. And for the USDT dominance, that has been pretty major support now, going back to the March 2024 top. And it's never gone in a long-term downtrend. The USDT dominance has never gone in a long-term downtrend. You could put that down to more stablecoins coming out, maybe more of that stablecoin money going to USDC, different stablecoins. That's also a possibility, but it doesn't change the analysis of this breakdown. And this particular move, which has continued to, let's say, consolidate at this stage because we haven't had a breakout, underneath the diagonal that has held up the entire bull market history going back to the 2017 top. So that's the 2017 Bitcoin all-time high. That's the 2019 big pump from 3K to 14K. You had another Bitcoin top here, and then the April and November tops. So it's never cleanly broken down from this line, and it could be on the verge of that now, which is why I keep coming back to this big, massive bull mania should this happen. And it's going to take time because it is such an important line here. Lots of little good signs in the meantime, but of course 3.7% is the goal there. True altcoin market cap also above the short-term 50% at 817 billion. Everything's looking relatively all right here, provided it remains at these prices and essentially does not break down from 640 to $660 billion. That could continue to form that strength for any of the stronger altcoins if things get running. I've got ETH to have a look at as well, which is a good sign there of some of the altcoins. But I'll take a quick look here at crypto total market cap, which has started to fall underneath the 3.55 trillion. So out of the last several charts, this is probably the only concerning one, and it is the total cryptocurrency market cap, because it hasn't been able to maintain 3.55 or even 3.65. And when Bitcoin put in a higher high, it's put in a lower high here. So of course this encapsulates absolutely everything, including the stable coins. The one saving grace here is it's still above 3.37, which is the short-term 50% level, and still above the speed line here. So that's what this diagonal is. That's how fast the market rose last time. And if it falls under that line, that means it's getting slower than what happened last time. And typically when things slow down, well, you know what happens next? They continue to slow down and they continue to fall. The good news, there's a lot of good and bad news, right? But looking at the previous top here, you're somewhere around 3 trillion. So you still have the low there at 3 trillion if this continues to slow down, and the 50% level at 2.7 trillion, which is still above the March top. So in the short term, things are still looking okay. If this develops into something more, there is still more downside that would still leave it in a macro bull market. So it'd still be in a relatively good position, but you would definitely feel like things are caving in and that the game is over. It looks like Ethereum is also trying to do the same thing here. It remains in its trading range, $3,100, $3,500. Not much has really happened except for ETH BTC, which in the last 24 hours has done something that it hasn't done since November of 2024, and that is climb back above a previous low and begin to close under some of those swing bottoms. So here's one of your swing bottoms. It bounced and closed above it in November, which held the market for about 2 months. So at the moment, in the last 24 hours, it's done the same thing. It's closed above that swing low. Some of that volume came back into these green days, and you're, at least at this stage, still holding above 3%. For the overbalance in time and price, so basically looking for a flip into strength for the market, here is my overbalance in time and price. I'm looking at roughly around 4.5%. So that's 0.045. Reason for that is it would be the largest rally against the trend if it was able to get there compared to anything previously in this whole move to the downside. That's what you want to see to confirm that the bulls are coming back to hold this market up. And yet at that 4.5%, that would also hold you above that previous swing bottom, which was pretty important there in May after I believe there was some other massive news there that pumped it for a few days, and then obviously it fell out of bed from there. So basically 4.5%. It was 4.6. Now that the market went lower, it's been revised to 4.5% for an overbalance in price at least, and then time is going to be dependent on how long it's able to hold up there, and we'll continue to follow that. XRP, still in a trading range here, guys. $2.90, $3.40, hasn't really gone anywhere. The longer, as I said in yesterday's video, if I can find that, this one here, the longer the signal fails, the worse it'll get. That one there was looking at the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index. As you can see here, it's failed to maintain in the greed or the extreme greed and dropped under the fear. On top of that, when markets continue to fail at 50%, it is generally a sign that it's weakening, that you might not see the full stretch up to that 100% level. And if it does fail, probably going to come back down and test the previous consolidation zone. So XRP overall, it's not the end of the world. You're still trading this reasonable range. Solana, same sort of thing here, $250, $260, has not broken down from $230, but you don't want it to hang around too long. It does need to find some strength and continue higher. Otherwise, all of that excitement, well, it was basically just premature excitement for 24 hours when you need this thing to hang on for days upon weeks to continue to form that strength. So overall, Sol still in a no man's land at this stage, but slightly more bullish. Sui same sort of thing. It's continued to grind lower. Remember, we've been following this as one of the signs that it has put in a short-term top here, which may develop into something like we saw in 2024, which is not, in my opinion, is not a bad thing for SUI, especially after it's going on two massive runs. And when you look at it versus USD, that led to a 10x. There's 40 something cents, 47 cents, peaked out at $5.36. So you got a 10x in that entire move after an 80% correction that lasted several months. So if that is forming again, and we still have longer to go in the cycle, it could be another good area to keep watching for that next move up. So just taking a look at SUI, from that high to that low, 131 days. So if you've got the patience of 4 to 5 months to track a market and watch for where a low comes in, and all that means is it could be a good altcoin to keep on that watch list if something rinses and repeats like last time. Low to the high, 154 days. What did this one do? Low to high, 160 days. A few days off the same sort of thing here. Okay, Pepe, Doge, and we got another one to get through. Pepe, yesterday's video, we're watching this start to break down from the 50%. It's touched the 50 and really has not seen any sort of significant bounce yet. Might see some of these short-term bounces, but no real significant bounce to change this trend. Doge, same sort of thing, has had another day down, but it remains in the trading range between 30 and 40 cents. Need a breakout to confirm the upside. Obviously, breakdown will confirm the downside. And the last one here is Trump. Official Trump has also continued on the downtrend here, looking out for any sort of breakdown of 30 bucks that could accelerate the downside. Otherwise, something around $45, holding above that level, would really start to set things up to test the $60 high here, and then the $80 high as well. So it does seem like lots is going on behind the scenes, but it's a lot of things that have been signed off and said and reports done, but we haven't seen any of it come into effect yet. And I think that's what the market might be waiting for. And if it takes too long, that's when people freak out and you get the dumping of prices. But for now, well, at least the TA is just showing that things are holding here. There could be some flush outs because we haven't seen that move forward at a quick rate. And if we do get the flush outs, that could come as a good reset to the market, especially as we take a look at that fear and greed index. Historically, it's done that a few times where it would flush out multiple times before it heads back into new fresh highs. Like, subscribe, link in the top of the video description for our 4th birthday sale. Don't forget the Bybit and Bluffin sign up bonuses here, 30K and a debit card, which I showed you in the previous videos. And for Bluffin, we actually got one coming up here for 100K. So I'm going to change that. That one's $100,000, but it's also no KYC. And for the Aussies, go trade your Trump and Melania coins and SwiftX, 20 bucks free. Guys, I'll see you back here at the next video. Have a fantastic weekend, and maybe I'll see you around the traps here in the surf. Cheers.